So, people, today we are revising the Ghost of Christmas Past. And remember that we're doing this as an active participant. We are not just passively watching the video, but instead you've got your exercise book there, you've got a pen, and you are going to be drawing a lot of information from your memory. You're going to be doing some analysis, and then you're going to add notes from, the experts' analysis based off of what I say. So have it ready. And here's your first three questions. One, what do you remember about the Ghost of Christmas Past? Two, what does it show Scrooge? So think about the key moments that the Ghost of Christmas Past shows Scrooge. There's three at minimum, like three really important parts that he shows Scrooge. What are those three sections that the Ghost of Christmas Past takes him back to? And third, what themes link to this character? And remember, you're doing this from memory. So when you pause the video and answer these questions, the reason you're doing it from memory is because one, every time you recall this information from your brain, every time you actively try and retrieve it from memory, you are solidifying that connection and that information in your brain. And this applies to every single subject, not just English. Anytime you do active recall, it helps you to learn that information. So the more regularly you do this, obviously you'll have the knowledge more solidified in your brain. So pause the video, answer those three questions, and then come back. So if I can skip the slide, there we go. This here is the first apparition that Marley's ghost warns us of. This is the Ghost of Christmas Past, and it's presented in this massive paragraph, and its appearance is described to us in so many different ways, and you don't have to know every single detail about this ghost, but there's a few different things that you can pick out as significant from its appearance. And when you're looking at the appearance of this ghost, you're focusing on the symbolism. And we're always focused on symbolism because one, it's a high level technique and writer's method that we can analyze. But two, just because Dickens is so smart, and when he's written this text, there's so much symbolic meaning in the appearance of all three of the ghosts. So here's an extract from the second stave. Have a look at what phrases you would pick out. What parts of the Ghost of Christmas Past appearance do you think is most symbolic, and what do you think that it's symbolic of? So again, pause, choose maybe two or three phrases to write in your book, analyze, unpick, what could it symbolize, and then I'm going to choose a couple of them to talk about now. So the first thing that I find really significant, and this is a quote that I would have in your memory ready to go, just because you can do such a high level analysis of it, is it's a strange figure, like a child, yet not so like a child as like an old man. And the first thing that I would say about this quote is that one, it depicts the Ghost of Christmas Past as a paradoxical figure. And by that phrase paradoxical, I mean two opposing ideas presented in one, which actually doesn't make sense, because how can you look like a child and like an old man? So we need to think about the symbolism of this. So if you think about the connotations of a child, what is a child symbolic of? One, innocence. Two, purity. Three, the past experience. So that's on the one hand. On the other hand, you've got this old man. And when we think of an old man, what are the connotations of that? You have this idea of wisdom, this idea of experience that comes through as well. So this ghost kind of blends time. You have the past, the child, but also the present, the old man. So what could this symbolize, and what could this represent? On the one hand, I believe that this shows how a past experience, and even if you think psychologically, a past experience has a tremendous impact on someone's present day. Like everyone here, every single human being is shaped by their past. Your past holds so much weight in terms of your current behavior, your current thoughts, your current beliefs, your current attitudes. So this kind of foreshadows the fact that this ghost is going to delve into Scrooge's past and reveal all of these past experiences that have impacted him in his current personality. So you have this innocence and wisdom that is symbolized here, but also the fact that the past is having a massive experience on Scrooge as a character. And this paradox foreshadows the fact that the ghost is about to present Scrooge with these past moments and to sort of reconcile his past and remedy a lot of, I want to say, the trauma that he's been through, like all of the bad experiences that he's had as a child. And just developing that, one phrase that I think is quite interesting to sort of, I'd probably use these in the same paragraph if I was writing an essay. The arms were very long and muscular, the hands were the same, as if its hold were of uncommon strength. And I believe that this shows a metaphorical hold of the past on Scrooge's present. The fact that his arms are muscular, that his hands have all of this strength, it's symbolic of the grip of the past on Scrooge's present. So these two quotes work together to depict the power of the past in shaping an individual's current personality. So not Scrooge, Dickens is kind of reflecting on the fact. Dickens is reflecting on the fact that in order to change, in order to evaluate one's current behavior and personality, and if we're linking it to the big ideas of the text, which is, your treatment of other people, you need to go on a journey of personal self-reflection. You need to look at your childhood, look at your experiences, and then see how it's impacted you in the present. The third thing that is presented, and again, this is, if we're thinking about the difference between a G5, G6, and a G7 to 9, it's the way in which you're presenting the information. So notice what I've stated here. 1, I'm talking about symbolism. 2, I'm talking about the metaphorical hold of the past. And the third thing, which is, I remember reading one full mark essay from AQA that they uploaded onto their system. And the whole essay was about the motif of light for A Christmas Carol. Now, I wouldn't suggest that you go ahead and write a whole essay on the motif of light, but mentioning it is important. And for those that don't know what a motif is essentially a reoccurring image or idea in a text. So this image of light we've seen before, it's shown with Bob Cratchit having one coal and Scrooge having a very small fire, but now it's presented again with this ghost. And the quote that I picked out is, "From the crown of its head there sprung a bright, clear jet of light." So this ghost is presented with a clear jet of light coming out of its head. So what could that light symbolize? I think 1 is enlightenment. So this idea that it's about to shed a light on Scrooge's past and illuminate all of these past experiences that have impacted Scrooge and his development. But interestingly, and we'll look at this a little bit later, the ghost also has an extinguisher as a cap. And that extinguisher suggests Scrooge's denial. So Scrooge can attempt to put out the light by putting this extinguisher on the ghost's head. But ultimately, look at the symbolism here. We've got this idea of the past and the present blending together, the impact of the past, and it's also conveying the function of the ghost of Christmas past, the function of which is to show Scrooge his past experiences, to remedy them, to reconcile them, and to gain a new understanding and gain insights from them. So that's my analysis. If you haven't already analyzed some other images from the Ghost of Christmas Past experience, here's something else I would do. I would analyze the symbolism of the fresh holly that the ghost is holding, and also the juxtaposition of the summer flowers on its dress with the wintry emblem. In what ways do those images juxtapose each other, and also what could they be symbolic of? Now, the first place that the ghost takes Scrooge is to school. And this part makes me really upset because, one thing to clarify, Scrooge is not like this evil monster that's malicious and malevolent. He's an individual that's been taunted and is impacted by his past experiences, and it shaped him. Same way our past experiences shape all of us. And this quote, this is probably the only quote I've memorized from this section. So, "A solitary child, neglected by his friends, is left there still. Scrooge said he knew it, and he sobbed." So I would answer this question in your books. How does this scene characterize Scrooge as a child? And how can we see the impact of this in present Scrooge? Second question I would look at is, what does Scrooge's reaction to seeing himself as a child suggest? You can see here in the image, this is Scrooge as a kid. This is the ghost. This is Scrooge watching himself in school. What would the impact be as Scrooge looks back in the past and sees himself alone, reading a book, neglected, solitary? Why is he sobbing when he sees this, and what could this represent? Once you've answered that question, I'll give you my thoughts. So, the first thing that I notice is a sense of isolation, right? Solitary, neglected. And if we're thinking about that G9 skill of connecting ideas across the whole text, is there another quote that shows that Scrooge is solitary? There is one in the first stave where he says, secret, self-contained, solitary as an oyster. So you can see how that isolation has transcended Scrooge's life. And to this day, in the present moment in the text, he's still alone, he's still isolated, but this time it's out of choice. But it gives us an insight as to why. This is what he knew as a kid. This was his experience. He was alone, isolated, neglected, had no friends, wasn't with his family. So it's all he knew. He didn't know the joys of family. He doesn't know the joys of community. He doesn't know all of the good qualities that come along with being a part of a unit. Although Fezziwig's party kind of contrasts this, but as a child, we can see the impact of it. And Scrooge sobbing is really this is such an easy quote to remember. He sobbed. But it's so powerful because psychologically, when someone's crying, it's cathartic. It's like a release. So when he's seeing himself as a kid and he starts crying, it's an acknowledgement of the pain that he felt as a child. It's almost like he's processing that emotion that he went through as a kid, and this processing will allow him to change later on. And I mentioned Fezziwig, and this is the second place that the Ghost of Christmas Past takes him. Now, Fezziwig is a foil to Scrooge, and if you don't know what that means, it essentially means Fezziwig and Scrooge are almost like parallel characters, but they contrast each other. So they have similar qualities, but they're also in direct opposition in terms of the characterization initially. So Fezziwig is Scrooge's old employer. So Scrooge was an apprentice, and he worked for Fezziwig. And in this scene, we can just see the joys that Fezziwig brought to other people. He's having this party. He invited so many people, like Dickens in classic fashion wrote literally like a whole page saying all of the individual people that he invited. And he keeps repeating this phrase here. In came the milkman. In came the dog walker. In came this person. In came that person. And when you think about why is Dickens why write, 2 paragraphs naming every single person that came? What's the purpose of that? And I would answer that question. Why mention every single one of them? Why write a whole paragraph about it? It's not necessarily the most interesting part of the text to read, but it's got a message behind it. And I think the fact that he individually names them all, it's creating that atmosphere of community, and it's also creating an image of Fezziwig as inclusive. He is the complete opposite to Scrooge. He doesn't isolate himself, but he brings together community. And it kind of ties into this idea of social responsibility. As an employer, Fezziwig has the responsibility to create joy for people, to treat them right, and to treat them with equality, regardless of their social status. And this little extract is, really significant. There's some good quotes here. He has the power to render us happy or unhappy, which shows the responsibility of the employer. And Scrooge is an employer. Who does he employ? Bob Cratchit. So Scrooge is recognizing Fezziwig had the power to make people around him either happy or unhappy. Equally, Scrooge has that same responsibility. He could make Bob Cratchit's life miserable, or he can make Bob Cratchit's life happy and pleasant. And you can see here this final quote, which I think is really good. The happiness he gives is quite as great as if it cost a fortune. And I love that, the financial language used, as if it cost a fortune. That simile is really important because we know Scrooge values money. We know Scrooge hoards wealth, is a miser. But here we can see a slow recognition that happiness is just as powerful as financial gain. And Scrooge, as he's watching his past, is starting to recognize that actually it's not all about money, but the impact that Fezziwig has, he ripples through the community almost as if it costs a fortune. Its value is equal to money. And then we can see Scrooge really reflecting here. I should like to be able to say a word or two to my clerk just now, that's all. And that quote, is really powerful. It shows Scrooge's slow redemption. It shows him starting to reconsider and reevaluate his treatment of Bob Cratchit and slowly change his ways. And this is like my favorite moment from this save. We have Belle. A lot of people forget her name. But Belle was Scrooge's fiance. And what I would do is read through this section here and just write down what is the main message. Like, there's so much more we can pick out here. But just from this section, what is being suggested about this moment? What does Scrooge learn? What do we learn about Scrooge as he's growing up? And what imagery is significant in these quotes? Now, the first word that points out, idol. So this idea of worshipping, this idea of like a divine attribute or an object of appreciation and worship, which was Belle initially, but now has been replaced by a golden one, the connotations of which are obviously pointing to wealth. And Scrooge replies with, "This is the even-handed dealing of the world. There is nothing on which it is so hard as poverty." And this characterizes Scrooge as an individual who's looking at society. And actually, I think it adds layers to Scrooge's characterization because he recognizes that poverty is not something easy to live with. There's a lot of hardship that comes with poverty, and Scrooge is aware of that. The issue is that he's prioritized wealth and money and fiscal gain over human connection. And that's profound. It shows that Scrooge hoarding money and Scrooge's obsession with wealth is actually a result of the fact that he fears poverty, like he's scared of it. And Bell says that Scrooge weighs everything by gain. So every decision he's making, all of his, considerations in the world are to do with increasing his financial position and becoming more financially stable and prioritizing wealth over connection. And there's I remember in one of my year 11 lessons, they showed me a TikTok compilation of Mr. Berling or the Inspector, and it was like the coldest moments. This is Belle's coldest moment. I haven't written the quote here, but when she breaks up with Scrooge, she says, "I release you." And I love that phrase. So when you break up with your partner, just say, "I release you," just drop them that text. But the idea of just releasing Scrooge now, so like suggesting that she is disregarding the connection they had, she's leaving it to him and releasing him to this world of economic gain. And later on in this section, kind of fast forwards a bit, still in the past, but we see Belle again, and she's married, which, instantly contrasts if we go all the way back to Scrooge being isolated here. And Belle's husband, not Scrooge's husband, sees Scrooge alone in his office, and he describes Scrooge as quite alone in this world. So we have this image that's just constantly developed of Scrooge's isolation. Like, he's got no family, no friends, no connection. Whilst Belle's life has moved on and she's now, a part of a family, Scrooge is still alone. And then this is the ending of the stave. And we're kind of going back to the extinguisher. Here's the two quotes. Scrooge observed that its light was burning high and bright. So that's describing the ghost of Christmas past. And remember the clear jet of light on its head. It's now burning high and bright at the end of the stave. And then Scrooge grabs the extinguisher and he tries to place it, as you can see in this image, on the ghost's head. He doesn't want the light. He's trying to get rid of the light. And again, going back to this motif of light, which transcends the whole text, what does it suggest? Why is Scrooge doing this? I would write these two quotes down, analyze them. Why is Scrooge trying to hide the light? What is this symbolic of? And then answer this question as well. What is the function of the ghost? What is Dickens's message here? In my opinion, the fact that its light is burning high and bright is symbolic of how it's illuminated Scrooge's past into his current awareness. It's shining a light on his past. It's bringing to consciousness all of these painful, traumatic moments from Scrooge's life, and it's bringing it to the forefront of his conscience. And Scrooge can't handle it. Like, imagine being shown all of your darkest moments in one go. It's emotionally hurting Scrooge, but in a positive light, it shows that it's having a profound impact on him. So this idea of reflection and awareness, Scrooge is struggling to process it all. And there's a reason this is the first ghost, because you first have to address your past in order to move forward. So what can you do now in your own time to learn this information even more effectively? And I've put some revision tasks here. So as always, reducing information is one of the primary ways to learn. So I've reduced it to the following headings or phrases: the whole of the past, paradoxical experience, school, Fezziwig, bell, the light. And what I would do is, again, you're doing it from memory, and it's not going to be easy, and you're going to miss out information. But the whole point is, this is going to help you to learn it. Just watching this video, you're not learning anything. Like, it will go into your memory for like 10 minutes, then you'll forget it in about an hour. But by reducing it into these phrases, then expanding upon it from memory, you will learn it more effectively. And every time you do it, you will remember more, I promise you. So write these words down. This could be your first task. And then annotate each of them with everything you remember. Quotations, key ideas, messages, everything you remember about each of these moments. The second thing, and I've highlighted this because I think this is probably, like, closer to your exam, this is going to be the most useful thing to do. Plan a paragraph for a question like this: how does the ghost of Christmas past influence Scrooge's change? What 2 to 3 quotations would you use to prove your point? And I've added this question in, and this is something to really consider. Like, in order to get a G9, you need to show a development of your idea. So therefore, you need to think about what order you're using the quotes. Would it make sense to go from Scrooge extinguishing the light back to the paradoxical experience of the ghost? Probably not. So think about what 2 quotes you could use in the same paragraph to prove a point that you're going to come up with for this question, and consider the order in which you're going to use them. You could then also write the paragraph if you would like. 3, you could do this task instead. If you was in Scrooge's position, which moment from this stave would have the biggest impact on you? And then explain why. Which of those moments? Seeing yourself in school, Fezziwig's party, seeing Belle break up with you, and then her husband seeing you all alone, or just generally the appearance of the ghost and the effect that might have. Write a short paragraph expanding upon which moment you think would have an impact on you if you was in Scrooge's position. Thirdly, what you could do is create a mind map of how Scrooge's experience as a child, Fezziwig, and Belle connects to other moments from A Christmas Carol. I would do this after one of these 3. And I would say that these 3 are probably most important first to get the knowledge solidified. Then see how you connect these moments to other parts. And I'll give you a hint. There's at least one moment that links to every single one of these. Every single one. This is a G9 skill. Thinking about the associations and connections between the moments in the text. And finally, if you had to give 2 quotes for each of these moments, what 2 quotes would they be? Put them on a flashcard, test yourself, and learn them. Next, we're going to look at the Ghost of Christmas Present, but I'm going to probably separate it into different videos, like 10-minute videos, because I think there's just, to be honest with you, too much time to pick. So choose 2 to 3 of these revision tasks, get on with them. Good luck. See you in the next one.